Hello everybody, I'm Amy Mulvenna and I'm Head of Geography at Charles Dickens Primary School. I hope many of you were able to join last week for the brief introduction to Digimaps for schools, where I walked you through a tour of the digital interface. Well, today what I'd like to do is unpack and look at some of the fantastic primary resources that have been developed by Paula Owens for Digimap for Schools. Paula is a bit of a wizard geographer, someone I'm very keen on. You can follow her on Twitter at Primary Geographer. So Paula's been has really authored many of the activities I'll be sharing with you today, and I think they're very indicative of the scope of using Digimaps across the key stages, and how it can enliven and make meaningful pupils' engagement with cartography within and beyond geography. So starting with year one, I'll be talking you through why my geography classes are just so useful. Year two, we'll be looking at UK landmarks in brief to think about comparing aerial imagery and topographical maps. Years 3, 4 and 5 are encouraged to be map detectives in this fun and specific true and false quiz. Year 5 then, there's a focus on rivers, and year 6, my favourite, fantasy maps. Although really this can be undertaken by any year group. Starting with year 1. This focus is on locating places to play, and a nice hook is to engage with your local area. My geography classes really is a way of thinking about the twofold nature of place in terms of human and physical. So on one hand, in one lens, we can see landscape features, and through the other lens, activities, human and animal, I suppose, activities that can be undertaken there. You can very simply literally give out a worksheet with just two lenses, blank lenses, and invite pupils to put on their special geography glasses to imagine with a focus on a particular area that they can see through one lens, the features and places there, and another, where they can go to play and what they can do there. Symbols, labelling, and brief notes there on the activities to be done in the area. This activity works as a really nice discussion point then. So discuss what kinds of things can be done there and how they're linked to the features around us. What do pupils really wish they could do if there was somewhere to do it? What would they like to be added to the local area in order to improve it, and why? You can then move to the Digimaps for Schools website and actually find those places in the area using a place or postcode search. Zoom in, study and scan the map to find each of these features that have been mentioned, which are built, which are human, which are natural, which are physical features, and what are the best kinds of features for play. If you remember last week, I talked you through the annotation toolbar, which you can see here. If you locate that favourite play spot for a pupil, they locate that on their map, they can add place labels to name, they can add little emoticons here to elicit the emotional geographies associated with that place. And having printed out their individual little maps, could have a bit of a class discussion around what are the best play places and what are the commonalities between those places and the differences also. Year 2 then, landmarks. If in year 2 you are indeed looking at Great Britain more broadly, having moved from a local study in year one, you can make meaningful and contextualize landmarks by exploring the different perspectives afforded by aerial photography and plan perspectives. You can locate landmarks and explore the basic human and physical features that they throw up. I've got, first of all, in England, Buckingham Palace. Very simply, enter Buckingham Palace into your search bar, zoom in to the topographical level, as far as you can zoom in, as seen here on the left, and then with the landmark at the centre of the map, expand the view by zooming out until you can see the outline of the palace and the quadrangle within it, the road curving around it, Constitutional Hill, and the Queen Victoria Memorial. Capture all that useful vocabulary as the pupils are chattering and zooming in and out. Last week I showed you the map selector tool. You can then select the aerial option and adjust the slider by moving across to show the aerial view of the palace and discuss what you can see, how the plan compares to the aerial view, what differences are apparent in place use, the movement, although this is a static image, what evidence of movement can we see, etc. I won't dwell too much on this, but you can see that if you want to sort of do a point of comparison looking at other key landmarks to explore the human activities there, so really thinking about geographies of tourism here, I guess, we've got Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh and Carnarvon Castle in Wales. What can you see inside the castle walls? Would this be different in July as opposed to December? Zoom in to explore the castle and the area around it. And I think especially given that opportunities for fieldwork may well be limited for certainly the next few months, you can still kind of really get under the skin of the map, as it were, to, as I say, contextualise, make meaningful for pupils those sites of focus, if indeed you're looking at Great Britain. Of course, the Geograph tool has a huge number of images uploaded by everyday users. It's open source, remember, Digimaps. You can use your search terms to find matching images for landmarks that you're focusing on in geography and, of course, in history, etc. Do a bit of research around your landmark and to develop those links in literacy, history, and also create a bit of a profile for your area. Touches on personal geographies here. What landmarks do your pupils feel best represents your area? Create a file of those along with maps and images to accompany them. So year 4, 5, also 3. Really, this is kind of open to any primary level because Map Detectives is easily adaptable based on pupils' ages and abilities. This is about inquiry, using maps to locate places and different features, and also describing landscape features and characteristics. Now, what you want to do, and I'll show you an example template in a moment, just try and make myself smaller there we are. You'll provide pupils with a set of true or false statements. They have to read each statement really carefully because each statement contains clues, i.e. place names, to help them search for and locate that place to find out if the statement is indeed true or not. If it is true, ask them to try and add additional info for kind of clarification. If it's false, can they correct it and give the right answer, giving a reason as to why it's false? You can really, as you'll see here, differentiate. And this is a nice point of assessment. Find out what pupils find tricky and why So there we are. Number 1, Newcastle has an international airport. There is a nature reserve at St Bees Head. So what kind of questioning will we be asking our pupils in order to help them make a more than educated guess, but to answer those questions? St Bees Head is on the east coast of England. From the locational then, you can start to think about movement and a sort of, again, human activity. Nuances here come through, maybe adding in one slight piece of incorrect information into an otherwise a true statement. Question 9 there for your children who are quite pernickety, who like to be very precise. The M25 motorway around London is exactly 100 kilometres in distance from start to finish. Now, moving on then, Year 5 focus on rivers. It's a nice way of supplementing field work, using Digimaps to support your observations, measurements, recordings, and also presentations of human and physical features in the local area around these river journey loci. So having identified your river, select points along its journey and browse those points in the images available from GeoGraph. What do these images tell you about the physical appearance of the river and indeed the landscape it passes through? What's the impact of the river on human activity and settlement? What evidence of human activity can you find in the river or otherwise? I mean, to really, again, make meaningful kind of features like oxbow lakes, the notion of meandering rivers, waterfalls, erosion. These can really, I think the GeoGraph search really throws into relief key features by virtue of offering that kind of immediate real life anchor. Other related activities, as well as measuring the river features and recording patterns of land use, will be to actually follow river wildlife along the journey, exploring which habitats are most suitable for different types of animals, how this changes seasonally, and recording river stories, river poems through those followed journeys. Could similarly take a focus on an annotated stretch of coastline, a journey along a motorway, a journey of an oak tree, a daffodil, investigating kind of hotspots where sightings of those features have occurred, when were the photographs taken, compare that to how far north or south the location was, what happens when we look at different points on the globe. The possibilities are endless, really. And these are just a snapshot of some of what you can explore in the primary resources section on Digimaps for schools. Another nice hook in mapping is the context it proffers for using, for making stories, really. Children can open Digimaps for schools, look for places they've been, that they've liked, perhaps somewhere they'd love to go to, somewhere they've seen in TV, the setting of a novel they're enjoying at the moment, and zoom in and see what that looks like on a map. So that's context for real life kind of desirous places. There's also some fabulous real names which can really inspire the imagination. All of these are easily found on Digimaps. And all of these seem to me to be particularly fascinating gateways for stories. I think a nice idea could be to try and find real locations for traditional tales, Hansel and Gretel, the Little Red Riding Hood tale, and use this to help with storytelling and retelling. I would always say use maps to tell and illustrate stories where possible. I'd encourage you to print and laminate a selection of maps and put them in the reading corner for children to access and read in their reading time. And also make imaginary maps to accompany traditional tales. Choosing locations, adding labels, markers to show important parts of the story. This book I highly recommend, The Atlas of Fairy Tales, beautifully illustrated by Claudia Bourdain. I can sort of show you just what it does is it takes traditional tales and, as well as recounting them, offers a route through the storied landscape. It's so evocative. I think holding that narrative arc together by being able to literally plot in place is such a kind of cognitively empowering tool. And being able to sort of lose themselves, I think, in maps, in these kind of intricate, familiar but perhaps unfamiliar landscape features, enlivening those through descriptive language, adding their own landscapes and developing these landscapes. All of this is going to be key in generating descriptive language to be then applied in the story making process. Okay, very quickly now, I have touched on stories, some little games that are nice points of sort of further orientation in Digimaps. Find Teddy. Teddy's gone missing. Hide Teddy in the school grounds and provide a large-scale map showing his location and see which group of intrepid explorers can find him first. A nice idea would be to laminate a set of maps in the school grounds where you can replay the game using sticky dots to show Teddy's location at different points. Jigsaws then, same idea, having a laminated map printed out. Cut these up, you could do, say, into 9 3x3 sections, place into zipped wallets and make enough packs so they can be used for group works and for discussion with the whole class. Ask pupils to choose a square from their pack and describe it to a partner first. Then see which group can put their map together the fastest. This can be done at different scales, so it's really appropriate for different year groups. I touched on this last week with the map selector tool, spot the difference. So the two historic maps available on Digimaps are the 1890s and the 1950s historical maps. Give them an allotted time to identify changes that have occurred in the local area compared to today, and collate a list. You could have them sort of working this in teams against the clock, against other teams, and kind of, I mean, obviously you do the local area, but there's so many other locations relevant to aspects of the curriculum that this could be relevant to. And finally, early years and beyond, messy maps. Cities are messy. A map should be too, to elicit that sense of liveliness. Something I've done in my own research with children in Belfast is button mapping. That's not restricted to, but includes a cornucopia of small things, buttons, pegs, hair grips, marbles, etc., etc. These are all kind of familiar, arbitrary, and flexible objects, and by that I mean explain to children that these things can stand for other things. What I like to do is a 3-stage process. First of all, ask a group, small group, to sort their selection of small things and give them a couple of minutes to do this. They could do this by size, colour, material, up to them. Stop. Next, sort the materials based on how they think local area, city, country is organised. Bit more time to do this, 5 minutes. Stop. Disorder that map. And finally, sort the materials based on how they think or they wish city, country, local area could be organised in the future. I'll leave it there, but really this is one to try with your children if you want to have a better understanding as to their perspectives on not just human and physical geography, but sort of local politics, kind of leadership, global, local events. It's such a powerful tool for pupil voice, and it's thrown into relief so many fascinating aspects I've been able to then tease out in future planning. So this is the Resources Centre for not just primary, but secondary. And I encourage you to really spend some time absorbing the wealth of knowledge from Paula Owens and others in their resources. Absolutely fantastically detailed and fun. Also included is the progression map to give an indication of how you might develop mapping skills in your primary curriculum. And they've usefully highlighted Digimap for Schools activities for each of these year groups. Okay, that's been a bit of a race through some of these activities. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you do spend a wee bit of time over the summer getting to grips with the interface. Remember, as I said in last week's session, it is free to subscribe to until the 31st of July. And then after that, it's £69 a year or thereabouts for primary. They're a fantastic team, they really are, and they offer free CPD if further assistance is needed. It's a little bit of information about myself and my interest in mapping. So thank you for your time, and have a fantastic summer break, everybody. Cheerio!